Okay, girls, time for our household chores. Good job, you're spinning. Grace, you get that wool carded. Olivia, you're doing good on the drop spindle. And Ava, we definitely need more cording, so use that lucette and get it going.
Society largely consisted of farming communities at this time, and being away from England and the poor and middle class, they had to make their own clothing. Wool and linen were the natural fibers they would have used, with cotton becoming more available during the late 1700s. You, of course, had to process your own wool through many steps, from shearing the sheep to cleaning the wool, carding the wool, like Grace is doing, to get all the fibers to line up correctly, and then spinning it into yarn like I'm doing here. You could then knit the yarn or use a loom to weave it into fabric for making into clothing. You can see that a woman's work is never done. Girls were just as important to running a family farm as the boys were.
So Elizabeth is using a spinning wheel, and this is something that most households would have had, or you knew someone that had one. And a lot of times by the time a girl was 4 years old, she was doing the spinning for the family. Somebody always had to be spinning because you needed to have enough yarn to make all of your family's clothing. Grace, before you can spin it, you need to take the wool that's been washed. Here's an example of unwashed, right off the sheep wool. You can see the dirt in there, and you can see how it's going all different directions. So once you wash it, you get something clean like this, and then you need to take it and you need to use carders, which are basically really sharp combs. Might be something that you'd clean your grill with. And you need to put the wool on there, and you want to get all the fibers going the same direction. You want them to line up. So that's what Grace is doing. You get all the fibers going the same direction. And then you end up with something like what Elizabeth is using. You can see how nice and smooth this is. This is called a rolag. Everything's going the same way. And then you'll pull off a piece like Elizabeth did, and you will spin that into yarn. And this is a rough finished product of what you would get after you would spin. This would be your family's yarn. This is a skein. And then you would take that, and if you had a loom or you knew someone that had a loom, you would either have it woven into fabric so you could make your clothing with wool, or you would knit for all of your caps for the winter, for your stockings, for your mitts, all kinds of things. So it was very important. Another way that Olivia is demonstrating to take this wool and turn it into yarn is called a drop spindle. And it's called a drop spindle because it's just one. You can even make one of these yourselves. You just drop it and you spin it and you pull out the fibers and it turns into yarn. So that's what she's doing. Much more inexpensive way, obviously. And then Ava is taking, you could use yarn for this also. It's called a lucette, and she's demonstrating how to make cording. You might have needed cording to tie your breeches, to thread through your petticoats. What else could you use cording for? Just for making rope. It was like rope making if you ever needed some kind of rope. So she's demonstrating that. Okay girls, it's getting late. You've all worked really hard today. I think it's about time for you to get home to your own houses. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Mrs. Rush.
Thank you.
Ava had a long day. She fell asleep. She worked so hard. My goodness.
Come along, Miss Ava. Let's head back to our tent.
What a weird dream.